She left her voice where no one could find it. 6 tapes in a shoebox, speaking to the future. The woman I remembered was only half the truth. Maybe love isn't hiding the fear. It's staying through it. What would you do if the voice you lost came back changed? The attic smells like grief left to settle. Mira stands at the top of the stairs, 27 years old, holding a flashlight she doesn't need. Pale October light filters through a single cracked window, casting long shadows across cardboard boxes stacked against the far wall. The air is thick with dust and old paper, the kind of smell that clings to your clothes long after you leave. She hasn't been up here in a decade. The floorboards groan under her weight as she steps inside. Outside, the distant hum of traffic drones on, indifferent. The house is being sold. The estate lawyer called 3 days ago and said the closing date is fixed. End of the month, no extensions, which means Mira has 2 weeks to sort through 30 years of her mother's life and decide what stays and what gets thrown away. She doesn't know how to do that. Her mother died 3 years ago. Pancreatic cancer, 6 months from diagnosis to funeral. Mira thought she'd processed it, thought she'd done the crying, the therapy, the slow return to normal. But standing here now, surrounded by boxes labeled in her mother's handwriting, she realizes she's been avoiding this room the way you avoid looking directly at the sun. She kneels in front of a stack near the window. The top box is marked Kitchen. Misc. The one beneath it says Photos. 1990s. The third box, smaller and slightly crushed on one side, is labeled in faded black marker. Colette. Summer. 89. Her mother's name. Mira's hands shake as she pulls the box toward her. The cardboard is soft with age, the edges frayed. She opens it slowly, as if something inside might break. Inside, wrapped in yellowed tissue paper, are 6 cassette tapes. No labels, just dates written in blue ink along the spines. Each one in her mother's careful, slanted script. June 14th, 1989. September 2nd, 1989. November 19th, 1989. And so on. Mira lifts one of the tapes and holds it in her palm. The plastic is cold against her skin, heavier than she expected. She hasn't seen a cassette tape in years, hasn't thought about them. But here they are, relics of a time before everything went digital, before voices could be saved in clouds and kept forever. She hasn't heard her mother's voice since the funeral. She thought she'd forgotten the exact timbre of it. The way Colette's words always sounded like they were being offered instead of spoken, soft and deliberate. Mira used to think her mother was just careful. Now she wonders if it was something else. Something quieter. There's an old cassette player in the corner of the attic, buried under a stack of blankets. Mira pulls it free, blows the dust off, the buttons, and slides the first tape inside. Her thumb hovers over the play button. She hesitates. Memory is kinder than truth. She knows this. She spent 3 years building a version of her mother in her mind. Strong, warm, unshakable. The kind of woman who never let fears show, who held Mira through nightmares and never once admitted to having any of her own. But what if that version was a performance? What if the woman on this tape is someone Mira doesn't recognize? She presses play anyway. Static fills the air, crackling and uneven. Then silence. Then breathing. Slow, deliberate, like someone gathering courage. And then her mother's voice, younger than Mira remembers. Lighter, uncertain. "I don't know if anyone will ever hear this," Colette says, "but I need to say it out loud. I need to hear myself say it." Mira's chest tightens. Her mother sounds afraid. "It's late," Colette continues. "Rowan's asleep. The baby's been kicking all night. I can feel her moving, and I don't know. It's supposed to feel like joy, right? That's what everyone says. But it doesn't. It feels like drowning. Mira stops breathing. She rewinds the tape 10 seconds and plays it again. It feels like drowning. The words hang in the air, sharp and impossible. Her mother, her careful, steady mother, sounded like she was breaking. And Mira, 27 years later, is hearing it for the first time. She looks down at the other tapes, still resting in the box. 5 more. 5 more moments her mother thought no one would ever hear. Outside, the light is beginning to fade. The attic grows colder, but Mira doesn't move. She sits cross-legged on the floor, the cassette player balanced on her knees, and listens to her mother's voice fill the silence she left behind. Mira's hands are shaking. She rewinds the tape 15 seconds and listens again. Her mother's voice, younger than Mira has ever heard it, fills the attic with a kind of intimacy that feels like eavesdropping. Colette is 32 years old on this recording, 8 months pregnant, speaking in the middle of the night while her husband sleeps in the room below. "I thought it would feel different," Colette says softly, "being pregnant. Everyone talks about the glow, the joy, the miracle of it, but mostly it just feels heavy. My body doesn't feel like mine anymore. It belongs to this person I haven't met yet." There's a pause. Mira hears her mother take a slow breath, the kind you take when you're trying to steady yourself. "It rained today," Colette continues. "I stood on the porch for almost an hour, just watching it. The smell of wet asphalt always reminds me of being a kid. I used to think rain meant the world was starting over. I wish I still believed that." Mira presses pause. The attic is silent except for the faint hiss of the tape machine still running in the background. She looks down at her own hands, still trembling slightly, and realizes she's been holding her breath. There's a faint smell of lavender coming from somewhere in the box. An old sachet maybe, tucked between the tapes. It smells like her mother's closet used to smell, like comfort wrapped in something bittersweet. She presses play again. Colette talks about ordinary things. The weight of her belly, the way her feet don't fit in her shoes anymore. How Rowan keeps asking if she's excited, and she keeps saying yes because that's what you're supposed to say. But the truth, she admits, is more complicated than that. "I'm terrified," Colette whispers. "What if I'm not good at this? What if I can't love her the way she needs to be loved? What if I'm too broken to be someone's mother?" Mira's chest tightens. Her mother was never broken. She was the one who held things together. She was the one who knew how to make pancakes shaped like bears, who stayed up late helping Mira memorize multiplication tables, who never raised her voice even when Mira gave her every reason to. That woman. Strong, patient, unshakable. That's who Colette was. But this voice doesn't sound like that woman. This voice sounds afraid. The tape continues. Colette talks about how she walks through the house at night sometimes, when she can't sleep, and wonders what kind of life her daughter will have. She wonders if the world will be kind to her. She wonders if she'll grow up thinking her mother was brave, or if she'll see through it, eventually. "I keep thinking about my own mother," Colette says. "How I spent my whole childhood trying to earn her approval. How I never felt like I was enough. And now I'm about to do the same thing to someone else. Pass it down like a curse." Mira feels something crack inside her chest. She never knew her mother thought these things. Never knew she carried this kind of weight. Colette always seemed so certain, so present. She never talked about doubt. She never admitted fear. But here it is, preserved in magnetic tape. Evidence, not memory, something heavier. The tape hisses softly as Colette's voice fades into a long silence. Mira thinks it's over, but then her mother speaks again, quieter this time, like she's talking to the future itself. "If you're hearing this someday..." Colette pauses. "I'm sorry. I tried to be brave enough to stay." The tape clicks off. Mira sits frozen. Tried to be brave enough to stay. What does that mean? She rewinds the last 30 seconds and listens again. The words don't change. Her mother's voice, soft, tired, uncertain, says the same thing. I tried to be brave enough to stay. Mira's mother didn't leave. She was there. She was always there. Every school play, every scraped knee, every bedtime story. Colette stayed for 24 years until cancer took her. So what was she talking about? The attic feels colder now. Mira looks at the other tapes, still resting in the box. 5 more. 5 more moments her mother thought no one would hear. 5 more confessions recorded in the dark. She picks up the second tape. The date written on the spine is 3 months later. 2 weeks after Mira was born. Her hands are steadier now, but only because she's forcing them to be. She slides the tape into the player and presses play without hesitating this time. Static. Then breathing. Then her mother's voice again, softer now, almost fragile. She's here, Colette says. Mira, 7 pounds, 3 ounces. She has my eyes, Rowan's chin. And she cries like the world is ending every time I put her down. There's a long pause. Mira hears something in the background. A soft cooing sound. Herself. 2 weeks old. I thought I'd feel different once she was born, Colette says quietly. Everyone said I would. They said the love would be instant, overwhelming, like nothing else. And it is. But it's also terrifying, because now I have something I could lose. The tape continues, but Mira's mind is still caught on that last sentence. Now I have something I could lose. Her mother loved her. She knows that. But she's starting to realize that love, for Colette, was never simple. It was always tangled up with fear, with the weight of what it meant to be responsible for someone else's entire world. And no one ever knew. Mira doesn't leave the attic. She tells herself she will. She tells herself she'll listen to one more tape and then go downstairs, make tea, call someone. But when the second tape ends, she reaches for the third. And when the third ends, she reaches for the fourth. Hours pass. The light outside shifts from pale gray to amber to something darker. Shadows lengthen across the attic floor, stretching toward her like they're trying to pull her deeper into the past. She doesn't turn on a lamp. She just sits there, cross-legged on the dusty floor, the cassette player balanced on her knees, and lets her mother's voice fill the silence. On the third tape, Colette sings. It's a lullaby Mira recognizes. Something about stars and sleep and being safe. Her mother's voice is soft, a little off-key, but steady. Mira remembers hearing this song as a child, lying in bed with a nightlight on, her mother's hand smoothing her hair. She thought it was just something mothers did. She didn't know it was also something mothers did to keep themselves from falling apart. She's 3 months old now, Colette says after the song ends. She smiles when I sing to her. I didn't know babies could smile this early. Rowan says I'm imagining it, but I'm not. She knows me. I can see it in her eyes. There's a pause. Mira hears her mother take a breath. But sometimes I look at her and I feel like I'm drowning again. Not all the time. Just moments. Like I'm standing at the edge of something I can't see the bottom of. Mira's own breathing syncs with the pauses on the tape. In, out. In, out. I don't know how to explain it to Rowan, Colette continues. He keeps asking if I'm okay, and I keep saying yes, because what else am I supposed to say? That I love our daughter more than anything, and I'm still terrified. That some days I hold her, and I can't stop thinking about all the ways I could fail her. Mira presses pause. Her arms are covered in goosebumps despite the stuffy air. The attic is warm, almost stifling, but she feels cold. She feels like she's intruding on something private, something her mother never meant for anyone to hear, but she can't stop. She presses play. The fourth tape is different. Colette's voice sounds steadier now, more practiced. She talks about baby Mira's tiny fingers, how they curl around her thumb when she holds her. She talks about the smell of her daughter's hair, like milk and something sweet she can't name. She talks about the quiet moments, rocking her to sleep at 2 a.m, the house dark and still, just the two of them. "I'm pretending," Colette says softly, "for Rowan, for everyone. I smile when people visit. I say all the right things. I tell them I'm tired but happy, and it's not a lie exactly. I am happy, but I'm also something else, something I don't have a word for." Mira realizes she's been taking notes. She doesn't remember starting, but there's a notebook open on the floor beside her, and she's written things down. Phrases her mother said, timestamps, patterns. The wait, the quiet that doesn't leave, pretending. She's trying to map her mother's emotional geography, trying to find the shape of something she can't quite see. The tapes have become something other than memory. They're a confession altar, a place where Colette said the things she couldn't say anywhere else. And Mira, 27 years later, is the congregation of one. She picks up the fifth tape. The label is different this time. Instead of just a date, there are words written in her mother's careful handwriting. "For Mira, when you're old enough." Mira's hands go still. This one was always meant for her. She slides it into the player, but doesn't press play right away. She sits there, staring at the cassette through the clear plastic window, watching the spools wait. Outside, the sky has turned the color of bruises. The attic is almost completely dark now. She can barely see the outlines of the boxes stacked against the walls. But she doesn't need light for this. She presses play. Static. Then silence, then her mother's voice. Older now, clearer, less uncertain. "Mira," Colette says, "if you're listening to this, it means you found the box. I thought about hiding it better, but I don't know. Part of me wanted you to find it. Part of me wanted you to know." Mira's chest tightens. "You're 6 years old right now," Colette continues. "First grade. You lost your first tooth last week and you were so proud. You keep putting it under your pillow even though the tooth fairy already came. Just to see if she'll come back." Mira remembers that. She remembers the gap in her smile, the way her tongue kept finding the empty space. "I need to tell you something I've never told anyone," Colette says quietly. "When you were 3 months old, I stood on a bridge. It was raining. I told Rowan I was going to the store, but I didn't. I drove to the bridge on the edge of town, and I stood there for almost an hour just looking at the water." Mira stops breathing. "I didn't jump," Colette says. "Obviously, but I wanted to, and that's the part I've never said out loud. I wanted to. Not because I didn't love you, because I loved you so much it terrified me, because I didn't think I was strong enough to be the mother you deserved." The tape hisses softly in the silence that follows. "I don't know why I'm telling you this," Colette continues. "Maybe because I need you to know I wasn't perfect. Maybe because I need you to know I stayed, not because I was brave, because I was too afraid to leave." Mira feels something break inside her chest. All those years, all those birthdays and bedtime stories and school drop-offs, her mother was there, smiling, present, unshakable. And all along she was carrying this. Mira rewinds the tape and listens again. "I stayed. Not because I was brave. Because I was too afraid to leave." The words settle into her bones. The fifth tape runs for 47 minutes. Mira listens to all of it without pausing once. Her mother's voice fills the attic like a presence, like Colette is sitting beside her in the dark, finally saying the things she never could while she was alive. "You're 6 years old now," Colette says. "Summer before first grade. You spent all morning catching fireflies in a jar, and then cried when I told you we had to let them go. You said they'd be lonely. I told you they needed to be free. Mira remembers that. She remembers the mason jar with holes poked in the lid, the soft glow of the insects moving inside. She remembers crying, not understanding why freedom mattered more than keeping something beautiful close. I need to tell you the truth, Colette continues, her voice steadying. When you were a baby, I had what they call postpartum depression. Except it didn't feel like sadness. It felt like drowning in a room full of people who couldn't see the water. Mira's vision blurs. Everyone kept asking if I was okay, Colette says. And I kept saying yes, because I didn't know how to say no. Because admitting I wasn't okay felt like admitting I didn't love you enough. And I did love you. God, I loved you so much, it terrified me. There's a long pause. Mira hears her mother take a breath, the kind you take before saying something you've been holding for years. One afternoon, when you were at preschool, I drove to the bridge on Old Mill Road. It was raining. I parked the car and I stood at the edge for almost an hour. I looked at the water and I thought about how easy it would be. How quiet. Mira's hands tighten around the cassette player. The hard plastic edges dig into her palms. I didn't jump, Colette says quietly. Obviously. But I wanted to. And the only reason I didn't was because I kept thinking about you coming home from school and asking where I was. I kept thinking about how you'd wait by the window, watching for my car. And I couldn't do that to you. Her mother's voice breaks mid-sentence, then steadies. So I got back in the car and I drove home and I picked you up from school like nothing happened. You showed me a drawing you made. A house with a yellow door and a tree that was too big for the yard. You were so proud. And I smiled and told you it was beautiful. And it was. Everything about you was beautiful. Mira feels tears sliding down her face. I'm not telling you this to make you sad, Colette continues. I'm telling you because I need you to know that staying wasn't easy. It wasn't some noble choice. I stayed because I was too afraid to leave, because the fear of hurting you was bigger than the fear of staying alive. The tape hisses softly. And then, slowly, it got easier. Not all at once, not in some dramatic moment of healing, but little by little. You'd laugh at something and I'd feel it. Just a flicker of lightness. You'd hold my hand crossing the street and I'd think, okay, I can do this one more day. Mira realizes she's holding her breath. The depression never fully left, Colette says. It just became something I learned to live with, like a chronic ache. Some days were better than others. But I stopped thinking about the bridge. I stopped measuring the weight of staying against the weight of leaving. I just stayed. Her mother pauses. If you're listening to this, it means you found these tapes. It means you know now. And I'm sorry if that's a burden. But I also hope it helps you understand that you were never the problem. You were the reason I stayed. You were the reason I kept going. The cassette clicks, signaling the end of the side. Mira doesn't flip it. She just sits there, staring at the player in her hands, trying to breathe through the tightness in her chest. Her mother fought a war she never saw. All those mornings Colette made pancakes shaped like bears. All those nights she sat on the edge of Mira's bed, reading stories until Mira fell asleep. All those years she showed up, smiling, present, unshakable. They weren't effortless. They were acts of survival. Mira feels grief, yes. But she also feels something else. Gratitude. Her mother wasn't invincible. She was human, terrified. And she stayed anyway. The revelation doesn't erase the pain, but it reframes it. Colette's life wasn't a performance. It was a choice she made every single day, even on the days when choosing felt impossible. Mira picks up the last tape. The date written on the spine is recent. just 2 months before her mother died. The handwriting is shakier now, less precise. Colette was already sick by then, already counting the days she had left. Mira slides the tape into the player. She doesn't hesitate this time. She presses play. Static. Then her mother's voice, older now, worn by illness but still steady. Still, unmistakably hers. "Mira," Colette says, "if you've made it this far, it means you listened to all of them. The whole messy truth. And I'm glad. Because I spent so much of my life pretending to be okay that I forgot what it felt like to be honest." Mira closes her eyes. I don't regret staying," Colette continues. "Not for a single day. Yes, it was hard. Yes, there were moments I didn't think I'd make it. But I did. And you were worth every single one of them." The tape hisses. "I'm leaving you these recordings because I want you to know the truth. Not the version I showed the world. The real one. The scared one. The one who fought to stay even when it hurt." Colette's voice softens. "Some people inherit money or houses or family names. I'm leaving you this. The truth. It's not pretty, but it's mine. And now it's yours." The tape ends. Mira sits in the dark attic, surrounded by boxes and dust and the lingering echo of her mother's voice. And for the first time since Colette died, she doesn't feel like she's losing her. She feels like she's finally meeting her. Mira sits in the dark for a long time after the last tape ends. The attic is completely dark now, except for the orange glow of a street lamp filtering through the cracked window. Outside, the world continues. Cars passing, distant voices, the hum of a city that doesn't know her mother just spoke to her from beyond death. But in here, time feels suspended. Like she's standing in the space between who she was before she found the tapes and who she'll be after. She rewinds the final tape, listens again. Her mother's voice, worn by illness but steady, fills the silence. "I'm leaving you these recordings because I want you to know the truth. Not the version I showed the world. The real one. The scared one. The one who fought to stay even when it hurt." Mira closes her eyes. She understands now. The tapes weren't a confession. They were permission. Permission to be imperfect. Permission to struggle and still be worthy of love. Permission to carry something heavy and not pretend it's light. Her mother spent her whole life performing strength. But the real strength was in the staying, in the waking up every morning and choosing to keep going, even on the days when that choice felt impossible. Mira opens her eyes. The shoebox sits beside her, the faded marker spelling out her mother's name. Colette, summer, 89. A time capsule of honesty left in an attic for a daughter who wasn't ready to receive it until now. She picks up one of the tapes and holds it in her palm. The plastic is still cold, still heavy, but it doesn't feel like a burden anymore. It feels like inheritance. Not the kind you put in a bank or hang on a wall, the kind you carry in your chest. There's a faint scent of perfume clinging to the box. Her mother's perfume, the one she wore every day. Lavender and something else Mira can't name. It smells like comfort wrapped in loss. She sets the tape down carefully. 3 years, she's been trying to hold on to her mother by remembering her perfectly. By keeping the image of Colette frozen in amber, smiling, steady, unshakable. But that version was never the whole truth. It was just the part her mother let the world see. The real Colette was more complicated than that. She was afraid. She struggled. She stood on a bridge and almost didn't come home. But she did come home, every single time. And that matters more than the performance ever could. Mira takes a slow breath. Maybe the voices we inherit aren't meant to comfort us. Maybe they're just meant to remind us we're not the first to carry something heavy if you've ever found a truth you weren't looking for. Stay for the next story. She picks up her phone. The screen lights up her face in the darkness. 12 missed calls, 7 texts, all from her father. She hasn't spoken to him since she came to the house 3 days ago. She told him she'd handle the attic. She didn't tell him what she found. Her thumb hovers over his name. Does he know? Did he carry this secret too, all these years? Or was he as blind as Mira, seeing only the version of Colette she wanted them to see? She presses call. It rings twice before he answers. Mira? His voice sounds tired, worried. Are you okay? I've been trying to reach you. She doesn't know how to answer that. Is she okay? She doesn't think so, but she's something else, something closer to whole. I found something, she says quietly. In the attic, tapes, Mom's voice. There's a long silence on the other end of the line. What kind of tapes? Rowan asks, and Mira can hear something shift in his voice. Something that sounds like recognition, like he already knows. Her voice, Mira repeats, talking about everything. The bridge, the depression, all of it. Another silence, longer this time. I didn't know she recorded them, Rowan says finally. But I knew, about the bridge, about how hard it was for her. Mira's chest tightens. Why didn't you tell me? She didn't want me to. His voice cracks. She said it was hers to carry, that you didn't need to know how close we came to losing her. Mira closes her eyes. I needed to know, she says. I spent 3 years thinking I understood her. I didn't understand anything. You understood what mattered, Rowan says quietly. You understood that she loved you, that she stayed. The rest is just the cost of staying. Mira feels tears sliding down her face again. I wish she'd told me while she was alive. She did, Rowan says. She left you the tapes. And he's right. Her mother did tell her, just not in the way Mira expected. Not face to face, with reassurances and explanations, but in the way that felt safest to Colette. In the dark, speaking to a future she wouldn't live to see. I'm going to listen to them again, Mira says. Okay. And then I'm going to make copies so they don't disappear. Okay. Rowan doesn't ask why. He doesn't need to. Some things are too important to let time erase. After they hang up, Mira sits in the attic a little longer. She rewinds the final tape one more time, listens to her mother's voice say the words that will stay with her forever. You were worth every single one of them. And for the first time since Colette died, Mira believes it. The phone call doesn't last long, but when it ends, everything feels different. Mira sits in the attic window, the phone still warm in her hand, staring at her reflection in the glass. She looks older than she feels, or maybe she feels older than she looks. She can't tell anymore. The street lamp outside casts her face in amber light, half shadow, half glow. Her father's voice is still echoing in her head. She said it was hers to carry. She presses her forehead against the cool glass. Outside, the neighborhood is quiet. A few lights still on in distant windows. Cars parked along the curbs like sleeping animals. The world unchanged by what just happened. But Mira feels changed. She knew her father loved her mother. She knew he grieved when she died. But she didn't know that he'd been carrying his own silence all these years. His own version of the weight. He told her things on the phone she didn't expect to hear. How he found Colette crying in the bathroom one night when Mira was 2 years old. How she wouldn't tell him what was wrong, just kept saying she was tired. How he tried to help, tried to pull her out of whatever darkness she was drowning in, but she wouldn't let him. She said it wasn't his to fix. I felt helpless, Rowan said, his voice cracking. I watched her fight something I couldn't see. And the worst part was knowing she was doing it alone, even though I was right there. Mira closes her eyes. Her father carried that for 24 years. Watching the woman he loved pretend to be okay, knowing it was only half true, knowing she stood on a bridge once and almost didn't come home. And he never told Mira, because Colette asked him not to. She wanted you to remember her as strong, Rowan said. She didn't want you to carry what she carried. But now Mira does carry it. And she's starting to understand that maybe that's the point. Maybe love isn't about protecting people from the truth. Maybe it's about trusting them to hold it. She opens her eyes. The tapes are still scattered across the attic floor, arranged like offerings around the cassette player. 6 small plastic rectangles containing a voice that shouldn't exist anymore but does. A mother speaking to a daughter across the gulf of death, saying the things she couldn't say while she was alive. The tapes have become a bridge, not just between past and present, between Mira and Rowan, between the woman Colette was and the woman she pretended to be, between grief and understanding. Mira picks up her phone again. She scrolls through her photos until she finds one of her mother from 5 years ago before the cancer. Colette is smiling in the Pona picture, standing in the kitchen with flour on her hands, mid-laugh at something Mira said. She looks happy, genuinely happy. And she was. Mira knows that now. Her mother's happiness wasn't fake. It was just complicated. She could be joyful and struggling at the same time. She could love fiercely and still think about bridges. She could be strong and fragile in the same breath. People aren't one thing. They're everything at once. Mira sets the phone down and looks at the tapes again. She's not angry at her mother for hiding. She's not angry at her father for keeping the secret. She's just here, sitting in the wreckage of a truth she wasn't looking for, trying to figure out what to build from the pieces. Her father asked her what she's going to do with the tapes. She didn't have an answer then. But she thinks she does now. She's going to keep them. Not locked away in an attic, but somewhere she can return to when she needs to remember that survival isn't always loud. Sometimes it's quiet. Sometimes it's just waking up and choosing to stay one more day. And maybe, eventually, she'll make her own recordings. Not for anyone else. Just for herself. A way of saying the things she's afraid to say out loud. A way of leaving something honest behind, the way her mother did. Because that's what the tapes taught her. The truth doesn't have to be pretty to be worth telling. She stands up, her legs stiff from sitting too long. The attic feels smaller now, less overwhelming. She gathers the tapes carefully, placing them back in the shoebox one by one. Her hands are steady. The cassettes click softly against each other as she arranges them in order. Before she closes the box, she pauses. She picks up the 5th tape, the one labeled "For Mira, When You're Old Enough," and holds it for a moment. This was always meant for her. Her mother knew, even back then, that someday Mira would need to hear this. That someday the truth would matter more than the performance. She sets the tape down gently. Then she closes the box. She tucks it under her arm and walks toward the attic stairs. The floorboards creak beneath her feet, the same sound they made when she first climbed up here, hours ago. But it doesn't feel like the same room anymore. It doesn't feel like the same night. She leaves the cassette player behind, leaves the dust and the shadows and the orange glow of the street lamp. Leaves the attic as a place she visited, not a place she lives. At the bottom of the stairs, she pauses. The house is dark and quiet, but it doesn't feel empty anymore. It feels like something was found here, something that was always waiting to be spoken. Mira doesn't take the tapes with her when she leaves the house. She makes copies first, digital files saved to her laptop, backed up to the cloud, preserved in a format that won't degrade with time. But the originals, the 6 cassettes her mother recorded in the dark, she leaves them in the shoebox. She places it back on the shelf in the attic, exactly where she found it. Not abandoned, preserved. She doesn't need to carry them everywhere. She just needs to know they exist. The house feels different as she walks through it one last time. Darker, maybe. Or emptier. The furniture is still here, covered in sheets like ghosts waiting for someone to remember them. But the air feels lighter somehow, like something that was trapped here finally found a way out. Her footsteps echo on the stairs, slower than when she climbed them. She pauses at the bottom, one hand on the railing, and looks back up toward the attic door. It's closed now. The light off. Just another room in a house full of rooms. But she knows what's up there. She'll always know. The scent of dust and lavender is fading as she moves toward the front door. It clings to her clothes, her hair, her hands. A smell she'll carry home without meaning to. A smell that will remind her, weeks from now, of this night. Of standing in an attic listening to her mother's voice say the things she never said while she was alive. Outside, the night air is cold and sharp. Mira locks the door behind her and stands on the porch for a moment, just breathing. The neighborhood is silent except for the distant hum of the highway, a sound so constant it's almost like silence itself. The street lamps cast long shadows across the empty street. No cars, no people, just her and the weight of what she now carries. She feels lighter, but not relieved. The weight didn't vanish. It just became something she could name. Her mother's depression, her father's helplessness, the bridge that almost claimed a life, the 24 years of performance and survival and love that looked like strength because it had to. All of it is hers now, not as burden, but as inheritance. She walks to her car and gets in. The seat is cold. The steering wheel feels unfamiliar in her hands, like she's a different person than the one who parked here hours ago. Maybe she is. She doesn't turn on the radio. She just drives. The roads are empty this late, the city quiet in that way it only gets after midnight. Streetlights blur past. Storefronts dark, traffic signals blinking yellow. She drives slowly, in no hurry to arrive anywhere, because there's nowhere she needs to be except here. Moving through the silence. She thinks about her mother standing on a bridge in the rain. She thinks about how close that moment came to erasing everything that came after. All the birthdays and bedtime stories, and pancakes shaped like bears. All the quiet mornings, and loud laughter, and ordinary days that make up a life. All of it almost didn't happen, because Colette was drowning in a pain no one else could see. But she didn't jump. She got back in the car and she drove home and she picked up her daughter from school and she kept going. Not because she was brave, because she was afraid of what leaving would do to the people she loved. And maybe that's what bravery is. Not the absence of fear, just the choice to stay despite it. Mira's eyes blur with tears, but she doesn't wipe them away. She just keeps driving, one hand on the wheel, the other resting against the window. The glass is cold under her palm. The city moves past like a film she's watching instead of living in. She thinks about the recordings she might make someday. Not for anyone else, just for herself. A way of being honest when honesty feels impossible. A way of leaving something true behind, the way her mother did. Not a performance, not a version edited for kindness. Just the truth, messy and raw and human. Because maybe that's the real gift her mother left her. Permission to be imperfect. Permission to struggle and still be loved. Permission to carry something heavy and admit that it's heavy. She pulls into her apartment parking lot and turns off the engine. The silence rushes in. She sits there for a long time, hands still on the wheel, staring at nothing. The building in front of her is dark except for a few scattered windows glowing yellow. Lives continuing. People sleeping or awake, grieving or celebrating, holding secrets or speaking them aloud. Everyone carrying something. Mira takes a breath, then another. She gets out of the car and walks toward her apartment, the shoebox of digital files on her laptop, the original safe in an attic she'll probably never visit again. The night air smells like rain, even though it hasn't rained, the kind of smell that promises something without delivering it. She unlocks her door and steps inside. The apartment is exactly as she left it. Empty coffee mug on the counter, books stacked beside the couch, the quiet hum of the refrigerator. Nothing has changed, but everything has. She sets her keys down, closes the door, stands in the dark for a moment, just feeling the stillness settle around her like a blanket. Her mother's voice is still in her head, not haunting, just present. Like a hand on her shoulder, like someone standing beside her saying, "You're not alone. You are never alone." Mira closes her eyes, and for the first time in 3 years, she feels like she can breathe. 3 weeks pass before Mira opens her phone and presses record. She doesn't plan it. She's sitting by the window in her apartment on a quiet morning, the kind where light comes in soft and yellow, and she realizes she has something to say, not to anyone in particular, just to the air, to herself, to the future maybe. She opens the voice memo app and stares at the red button for a long time. Her thumb hovers, hesitates, just like her mother's must have, all those years ago. Then she presses it. The silence that follows is different from the silence before. It's waiting now, listening. Mira takes a breath. "My mother left me her voice," she says. Her voice is quieter than she expected, but steady, like something she's been holding for years, finally finding a way out. "I found it in an attic. 6 cassette tapes. Her confessions, her fears, all the things she never said while she was alive." She pauses. The phone is warm in her hand. Outside, the city hums with morning traffic, distant and soft. Someone laughs on the street below, life continuing, indifferent and kind. "I thought I knew her," Mira continues. "I thought I understood who she was. But I only knew the version she let me see. The strong one. The one who made pancakes and read bedtime stories and never let the cracks show." Her throat tightens, but she doesn't stop. The real her was more complicated than that. She struggled. She thought about leaving. Not me, but life. And she almost did. But she didn't. She stayed. Every single day she chose to stay. The words feel heavy and light at the same time, like speaking them makes them real in a way they weren't before. I don't know if I'm supposed to be angry about that, or grateful. Maybe both. Maybe it doesn't matter. She was human. She was afraid. And she loved me anyway. Maybe that's all love is. Choosing to stay even when it's hard. Mira looks out the window. The light catches on the glass, turning everything gold. A tree outside sways in the wind, its branches bare but beautiful, waiting for spring. I'm making these recordings because, I don't know, because she gave me permission, I think, to be honest. To admit when things are hard, to stop performing and just be. She closes her eyes. "I don't know what I'll leave behind when I'm gone. I don't know if anyone will ever hear this. But I think that's okay. Maybe the point isn't to be remembered perfectly. Maybe it's just to be remembered honestly." She opens her eyes. The red button is still recording, waiting, patient. Some voices we inherit aren't lessons. They're just proof that someone else was here before us, that they felt what we feel, that they carried something heavy and kept going. Her voice cracks slightly, but she doesn't edit it out. My mother didn't leave me answers. She left me questions. And maybe that's the real gift. The permission to not have it all figured out. The permission to be scared and stay anyway. She takes another breath. Outside, the world continues. Cars pass. People walk dogs. Someone waters plants on a balcony across the street. Ordinary moments stacked on top of each other. building a life. I miss her, Mira says quietly. I miss the version I thought I knew. But I'm grateful for the version I found. The real one. The one who fought battles I never saw. The one who stayed. She presses a stop. The recording ends. The silence rushes back in. But it's not empty anymore. It's full of something she can't name. Something that feels like inheritance. Like permission. Like love that doesn't need to be perfect to be real. Mira saves the file. Labels it with today's date. The first of many, maybe. Or the only one. She doesn't know yet. But she has it now. Her voice. Speaking into the dark the way her mother once did. She sets the phone down and looks out the window again. The morning light is softer now, gentler. The city sounds like a lullaby, distant and soothing and sad in the way that beautiful things sometimes are. Her mother's voice is still in her head, not haunting, not guiding, just present. Like a hand on her shoulder, like someone standing beside her saying, "You're not alone. You are never alone." And for the first time, Mira believes it. She picks up her coffee, takes a sip. It's cold now, but she doesn't mind. She just sits there, holding the cup, feeling the weight of the morning settle around her. Some inheritances aren't meant to be solved. They're meant to be carried forward, transformed, but never erased. Her mother left her the truth, messy and raw and human. And maybe that's the only kind of love that lasts. The kind that doesn't hide. The kind that says, I was afraid, and I stayed. I struggled, and I loved you. I was imperfect, and I was here. Mira smiles. Small, fragile, but real. The people we love are never just one story. They are all the voices they tried to hide, and all the truths they left behind. And maybe love isn't remembering them perfectly. Maybe it's remembering them honestly. Outside, the wind picks up. The tree sways. The light shifts. And Mira breathes.